Third, reason. You know what I mean when I say reason? Our minds, our logic, very good. And very last is our personal experience, yes. And the world that we live in is one that has left the realm of logic behind. You can't necessarily prove anything in today's world anymore. Now this is rampant in America, but it's coming to the Bahamas. It's knocking on your doorstep, and you might even see it already in your children. How is it you say that this is, even if it makes sense, I don't believe it. Even if it is logically true, that doesn't mean I have to believe it. Your experience is the only thing that trumps the day. And so you can have somebody like that woman in there that doesn't put any bounds on God. There is no bounds from what Scripture teaches. There are no bounds from what our tradition teaches. In fact, not even intellectual ability lets you approach God. God is just this phantomless, disembodied, nebulous sort of whatever. And there's a lot of people that believe that.
How can you believe that you're your own God? That is ridiculous. They believe that the man is God, the sea is God, that it's just
Well, the purpose of tonight's discussion is to define for us really who is this God? What is God? What is the nature of God? Did you catch the little boy? Have you been impressed with that little boy so far? Do you remember what he said? He said, God is a perfect being who presides over His creation. We're going to come back to that idea right there. But before we do, I want you to open up your manuals, page 34. Part of what you saw here, all of these different beliefs, where do our beliefs come from? What are they resting on? Do you remember that? The pyramid illustration? What's that foundation made of? Close, very close. Worldview, very good. Actions, beliefs, worldview. The man at the very end, do you remember him, the businessman looking guy? He said, your definition of God, it depends on your worldview. Yeah, remember what your worldview is made up? It's made up of that. Answer that question. It's made up of your theology. So what you think of God depends on how you see the world. Look with me on page 34. This is going to be tonight and tomorrow. We're studying theology proper at the very top. Look with me in the middle. Some popular non-biblical descriptions of God. God is, to some people, the force of life, the ground of our being, the principle of love, ultimate reality, Mother Nature, the man upstairs, not like anything we know. What do all these have in common? What do all these have in common? Is there anything that you can see that's a strand running through all of these answers? Okay, very good. Okay, I'm going to elaborate on what you're saying, because the point that I feel that you're leaning towards is this is what they all have in common. They all are approaching God from this direction. They are all taking what our experience is and that which we have in common of our life and the things that we understand. We all have fathers, right? Mothers, fathers. How many, I don't want you to raise your hand, but you may have had a father that wasn't the kindest father. For you, the word father might put a disdain in your mind. So to conceive of God as Father is going to lead you to a misunderstanding of who God is. Every single one of these nebulous, he's a force, he's Mother Nature, he's this something other that we can't define. They are going from this direction, man towards God, taking our experience, what we can define, to try to define who God is. Do you guys remember our talk on Revelation? What two kinds of revelation are there? The kind for everybody is called general. Special. What's an example of special revelation? This is besides the person of Jesus Christ, this is the best example that we have for special revelation. This tells us something completely unattainable through the general revelation. We need this in order to understand who God is. And so the proper way that we must define God is not going from here up, it's going from what God has given us as revelation down. Let's look over some of these worldviews. The big number B there. First one's called monism. There is one impersonal, ultimate principle, force, or purpose at work in the universe. How many of you have seen Star Wars? You ever seen the movie Star Wars? Luke, I am your father, right? You guys remember that? What was the component that had all the living beings connected? What did they call it? What was that called? Luke, use the... I know you've seen this movie. Really? Do you know who Yoda is? Very good it is. Yeah, he was a little Muppet guy. If you've seen the movie, you may remember that the component that connected all living beings was called the Force. Remember? Luke had to use the Force. And he could hold his arm out like this and lift the chair right off the ground, right? By using the Force. Yeah, that's almost what this is similar to. That'd be a type of monism. There is one being, it might just be this nebulous sort of force, whatever, but that is the one principle that's at work in the universe. It's this idea of the force. All right, number 2, dualism. There are two equal but opposite forces which oppose each other in the world. Good versus evil, mind versus matter, spiritual versus physical. Dualism is going to crop up in church history again and again. It's just going to stick its head up here. It's going to stick its head up there. And you know what? It's already in your own lives. You may already have been infected with dualism. You might already think that it is more important for you to care about your spiritual side than your physical side. You might think that your spiritual somehow has more value over your physical, and that you've made this dualistic schism between the physical and the spiritual. This comes from Plato. Long time ago, he said that there's this dualism that goes on. We see a physical, material world, and then there's this whole spiritual world that's going on. And it's really not the physical that matters, because the physical is where we have pain and suffering, right? It's the spiritual that matters. And that concept crept its way in like an infection into Christianity and began to change people's conception of how they believed about themselves and who we are. People would emphasize the spiritual over the physical. Pretty soon this turned into a heresy called Gnosticism, which we're going to look at when we get to church history. But it's a form of dualism. It's looking at this false understanding, this false worldview. I can see I'm already making some folks unsettled here by this. This is good. Just hold on to the tension, because we'll come back and we'll resolve it. All right, number 3, humanism. This is Andrea's one that she had a beef with before, right? Man is his own God.